And so I'm passionate about civic engagement.
Wow. Okay. I was hoping you could speak a bit to the relationship you hope to build with the student body.
Well, I had the opportunity to talk to the executive committee about what you would like, and my goal would be to meet as often as possible, and they had suggested bi-weekly meetings, which would be wonderful. We also talked about the fact that I would love to be able to hold the kinds of community conversations I mentioned in the residence halls so that we can create more community in the place where you're living. I will have an open door policy, so whatever we think will work best toward achieving our common objectives. And I need to know what students' concerns are to be able to provide the kind of advocacy necessary to move to the next level. So I'm looking forward to hearing what will work for you and what makes sense. Yes?
I was just wondering that right now you said about open dialogue in the residence hall. So once you will be, you are the president, once you will be in the position of having so many responsibilities, do you think that, isn't that like thinking too much beyond that you will be able to like have dorm meetings? Because I would love that. I would seriously love that because everyone would feel very comfortable in doing that. I mean, it's a great idea, but I hope that it does actually get implemented.
I hope so too. I'm at the University of Hartford now, and my days start very early, and so I leave, not very early, but my days start early. I leave the house around 6:30. I'm usually getting home around 11. I have an hour commute each way, and so I'll have 2 hours back in my life here when I'm living on campus. And much of the time that I spend at the University of Hartford is engaging with students, either by going to basketball games or going to theater performances or having community conversations. So I had both a faculty fellows program where faculty and staff were engaged in community conversations, and a parallel student program. And I did the same thing at the University of Rhode Island. There was an incident at the University of Rhode Island, probably about 10 years ago now. And I know some of you have heard this story, but we had a cartoon that was in the student newspaper the week before classes ended, right before the holiday break. And the cartoon was a filler cartoon, so the editor of the 5-Cent Cigar, which is a student newspaper, needed something to fill the space. He stuck in this nationally syndicated cartoon, and it was about the Texas policy that had rejected affirmative action. And so the cartoon depicts an African-American student knocking on the door of the University of Texas Law School classroom, and the professor says to the student, if you're here to empty the trash, wait until after class is over, but if you're here for class, welcome. And this was meant to be an indictment against the Texas stance on affirmative action, but our students of color on campus saw this, and they thought it meant that they weren't welcome on our campus. There was no comment around this. And so we spent a lot of time as a community talking about who gets to decide what constitutes racial offense, and how do we balance our commitment to free speech and academic freedom with the right to feel safe in a learning environment, those rights to equal protection. And as a result of that incident, I worked with 2 other colleagues, and we received a Hewlett Foundation grant to develop this Faculty Fellows Program and Student Fellows Program. And we had community conversations not only in the university, but around the state. So we went to the libraries in every town in the state of Rhode Island, and we handed out books to the community. We used Toy Derricott's The Black Notebooks, Jonathan Kozol's Amazing Grace. We used, most recently, Anthony Appiah's Cosmopolitanism. We used the book American Knees. So we were looking at a broad range of issues with respect to diversity, and we were able to sustain that for a number of years. We ended up building a multicultural center as a result of this. And so I have had a lot of experience, and I'm deeply committed to this. When I was at Brown, I worked with one of my major professors, John Ladd, to establish the Center for the Study of Race and Ethnicity at Brown University, and that was under Howard Swearer. So I'm not going to let this go. I promise that I will have those meetings.
Thank you so much.
Oh.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm a senior this year, so I'm sad to say you as president. But I did have a two-part question. One was, while you were a student at Mount Holyoke, what were the challenges then that the school was facing, and what was the role of the president at that time? And then now, what do you see as the challenges that Mount Holyoke faces, and what is the role of the president in this age? Is it different, or is it the same? So what are your thoughts on this?
I think the challenges are a little different. When I was here, I was under two presidents. So David Truman was the president, and then Liz Kennan came in as president. I was talking over dinner about the fact that I was raised as a vegetarian. I came here, there was no vegetarian food, so we had to lobby for vegetarian food. There was very little diversity in terms of a lot of students, but also class diversity. And so we spent a lot of time talking about issues of access to excellence in higher education and how to achieve those goals. There was almost no discussion about GLBT issues, and so I spent a lot of time lobbying to just have a voice in terms of bringing the community together in conversations about those issues. So those were some of the social issues. There hasn't been a substantive change for any institutions of higher education in terms of providing access to excellence in higher education, except that it's become more difficult. When I came to Mount Holyoke, I came under Pell Grants and CETA funding, which is the Comprehensive Employment Training Act, and that provided me with the opportunity to work 35 hours a week to get money to pay for my education. My mother made $8,000 a year. It cost more than that to come to Mount Holyoke for a year, and so I needed help. And now there's less financial aid available for students, and there's an increasing gap in terms of students who are from low-income families and those who are from middle-class and upper-income families. So that's a significant challenge. Presidents, when I graduated, didn't have to do as much fundraising as they do now and outreach into the community. So that's a different role, but it's one that I'm looking forward to, because what fundraising involves is telling a story, and we have such a compelling story to tell. I can't wait to be able to showcase the work that all of you are doing here.
In regards to the fundraising, I was just wondering what your plans were specifically for fundraising for the college to make our endowment, as large as possible for the students who are coming in. Because I realize we're increasingly accepting more students. I'm a freshman right now, and we have the largest class as has been seen, around 700, 6 something. And I'm just wondering what you're thinking about doing for the students who come in who do need the financial aid, and we don't necessarily have enough money to help them, but we